Insult harvest table glowed with amber light and the cozy clatter of dishes. On Thanksgiving evening, families filled the booths, trading stories over turkey and cranberry sauce. At our table, the warmth curdled the instant. Douglas Wilson cleared his throat and smiled. "Everyone," he announced, "this is Stephen Garcia, my future father-in-law. He is retired well, practically unemployed these days. But he keeps busy with hobbies." The laugh he added was gentle enough to pass as charm and sharp enough to draw blood. My daughter, Olivia, went still. "Douglas, please," she murmured. Her cheeks flushed the color of mulled wine. I lifted my water glass and took a slow sip. In 62 years, I had heard worse said by better men. Still, the insult reached across the table like a hand pushing my chair back from the family I loved. "Retirement has its benefits," I said lightly. "It gives a man time to think." "Exactly," Douglas replied, eager to perform for the two colleagues from BioFuture beside him. "At your age, thinking and relaxing are the priorities. The business world moves fast now. People like me put in 60 hours a week and adapt constantly. That is why I have been successful in corporate sales." One colleague nodded, the other watched me, waiting for a rebuttal. I unfolded my napkin and laid it over my lap. "Change can be challenging," I said. "Challenging for some," Douglas said, leaning back. "For those with drive, change is opportunity. In 3 years at BioFuture, I have grown numbers by nearly 40%. "Impressive," I said. He drew closer, voice lowered. "People your age cling to outdated methods. Experience without adaptation is stagnation. Senior dead weight can sink a company." The phrase dropped like a stone. Olivia's hand tightened around her fork. I set mine down carefully. "Experience is also ballast," I said evenly. "It steadies a ship in a storm." He grinned, missing the edge. "Maybe. But hunger and youth win markets. Fresh ideas, aggressive strategies. The willingness to disrupt my generation understands that." The waiter arrived with plates of roast turkey, stuffing, and glazed carrots. When it was my turn, I ordered soup and a sandwich. Douglas's brows ticked upward. "Practical," he said. "Budget-friendly." I smiled. Practicality has its place. I let the conversation move on. Travel plans, a remodel, an electric car. Yet Douglas kept returning to the sermon. "It is good you stay active, Mr. Garcia," he said. "Gardening, reading, keeping your mind sharp. Hobbies keep older men occupied." My silence was not surrender. It was patience, the kind tempered by decades of building, losing, and building again. By the time pumpkin pie arrived, the admiration he wanted from his peers had been secured. I had gathered something better. A clean map of his character. I slid on my coat. I am calling it a night. Olivia stood half out of her chair. "Dad, do not take it to heart." I kissed her forehead. "Sweetheart, I know exactly how seriously to take it." The drive to Evanston was quiet, streets lined with damp leaves and a thread of wood smoke. Inside, I walked past the living room and straight to my study. The room greeted me with the truth I keep off stage: photographs of 2 young men in a cramped garage, patent certificates in neat ranks, a magazine page calling me the quiet revolutionary of biotech. On the desk, beneath a leather folder, lay the incorporation papers of BioFuture Incorporated, signed in 1995 by Raymond Johnson and by me. I sat and traced the folder's edge: retired, unemployed, hobbies. Such small words for a life spent coaxing hard ideas into bloom. My phone lit the dark with a message from Olivia. "Are you okay?" I typed back. "Completely." Then I opened a notebook to a blank page. Across the top I wrote, "Thanksgiving." Below it I listed the phrases that mattered: senior dead weight, budget-friendly, at your age, fresh ideas, disrupt. Words are clues. Patterns make people visible. I closed the notebook. Gratitude is the lesson of this holiday, and I felt it now. I was grateful for an unfiltered look at the man who wanted to marry my daughter. Grateful for time, for patience, for the quiet tools a long life puts in one's pocket. Grateful, even, for arrogance, because arrogance is honest. It shows you where the fault line lies. Thanksgiving did not end at the restaurant. It began there. Soon enough, Douglas Wilson would learn what 3 decades of survival and invention can do when they align like a compass needle toward a single target. I turned off the desk lamp and let the house grow still. Morning light spilled across the oak desk in my study, illuminating the quiet trophies of a life I rarely discussed. Most visitors to my Evanston home never stepped into this room. To them, I was simply Stephen Garcia, a man in his 60s who enjoyed gardening, reading, and long walks by the lake. They never saw the framed patents, the photographs of me and Raymond Johnson in our 30s bent over lab equipment in a rented garage, or the leather folder that held the incorporation papers of BioFuture Incorporated, signed in 1995. I leaned back in my chair and let memory drag me through time. 30 years earlier, Raymond and I had survived on pizza, cheap coffee, and faith. We mortgaged nearly everything, living on credit cards, while developing the first prototypes of our biotech innovations. There were nights we slept on the floor because our rented workspace had no heat. Failure had been closer than success at every step, yet persistence carried us forward. The world saw luck when BioFuture finally broke through, but I knew it had been grit, long hours, and the refusal to quit. That truth was etched into every line of my hands. The phone rang, pulling me back. I answered, and Raymond's familiar voice filled the room. "Stephen, how was Thanksgiving dinner with your daughter and that ambitious fiancé of hers?" I smiled faintly. "Enlightening." Raymond chuckled. "I bet. You should come by the office soon. The quarterly numbers look solid. We're heading toward $500 million in revenue this year. Nearly 1,500 employees now. Sometimes I think we built a monster. That monster keeps a lot of families fed," I replied. "True. But without you, things get messy. The board listens to me, sure, but they remember you. They remember the quiet revolutionary who kept us alive when investors wanted to pull the plug." I shook my head. "Retirement suits me. I like watching from a distance." "Distance doesn't stop problems," Raymond said. "There's a young sales manager, Douglas Wilson. Driven, smart, but impatient. Keeps talking about tearing down old systems, replacing senior staff with new blood. Thinks experience is dead weight." My grip on the receiver tightened. "Douglas Wilson. Yes, I've met him." "You have?" Raymond sounded surprised. "Then you know what I mean. The kid's got numbers on his side, but arrogance like that can poison a company." I let silence stretch. Finally I said, "Arrogance is best cured by consequence." Raymond laughed. "That's the Stephen I know. Still teaching lessons." When the call ended, I set the phone down and opened my notebook. On the page marked Thanksgiving, I added new entries. BioFuture revenue, $500 million. Staff, 1,500. Wilson wants disruption. Each note joined the growing map of a plan. I stood and walked to the bookshelf. In a frame sat a yellowed photograph of me and Raymond, standing beside our first successful product, a diagnostic kit that changed lives. My hair was darker then, my shoulders straighter, but the pride in our faces was the same pride I felt now. A knock sounded at the door. Olivia stepped in, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes shadowed with worry. "Dad, may I talk to you?" "Always," I said, motioning her inside. She perched on the arm of a chair. "I know you're upset about what Douglas said, but he doesn't mean to hurt you. He's just ambitious. Ambition without respect is dangerous," I replied. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "I've always known, Dad. About you, about BioFuture. You never told me directly, but I pieced it together. The awards, the phone calls from Raymond, the way your old colleagues treat you. I studied her face. "And you never told Douglas?" She shook her head. "You seem to want privacy. I respected that. But now I wonder if keeping it secret was a mistake." "Secrets have their uses," I said gently. "When people think they see the whole man, they reveal their own truth." Her eyes filled with conflict. "You're planning something, aren't you?" I didn't answer. Instead, I returned to the desk, tapping the leather folder. Thanksgiving gave me clarity. Douglas revealed himself without restraint. That's more valuable than any résumé. Olivia looked at me a long moment. "Please, don't do anything just for revenge." "Not revenge," I said softly. "Education." She sighed and rose. "Be careful, Dad. I don't want to lose you in some war with the man I love." When she left, I opened the folder and touched the papers that had started everything. Douglas believed I was an aging man with nothing but hobbies. He thought experience without adaptation was stagnation. He called men like me dead weight. Soon, he would discover what 3 decades of adaptation looked like when aimed at him directly. 2 days after Thanksgiving, Olivia and Douglas arrived at my house just after lunch. The late November sky was low and gray, the kind that made the neighborhood look washed in silver. I had been raking leaves when their car pulled up. Olivia waved cheerfully from the passenger seat, but Douglas emerged with the swagger of a man arriving to deliver instructions. "Mr. Garcia," he said, gripping my hand with a firmness that pressed harder than courtesy required. "We wanted to drop by and share some news." I brushed leaves from my gloves. "Come inside. It's cold." In the living room, Olivia handed me a cream-colored envelope. The weight of the cardstock spoke of expense. "The official invitation," she said. "Douglas organized the BioFuture Thanksgiving banquet at Lakeshore Country Club. It's going to be very formal, Dad. The CEO, Raymond Johnson, will be there, along with several board members." Douglas straightened his tie. "It will be a tremendous opportunity for networking. Very important people will attend. Which brings me to something we should discuss." I raised an eyebrow. "Yes?" "Your attire," he said carefully. "Mr. Johnson is a man of sophistication. First impressions are vital. You should dress more presentably than usual." Olivia shot him a warning look, but Douglas forged ahead. "You have a suit, I'm sure. Still, we could help you select a tie that reflects professionalism. People notice details." I chuckled softly. "I know how to handle bosses, Douglas." His expression flickered with doubt. "Mr. Johnson built BioFuture from nothing into a major corporation. He notices everything, how you carry yourself, how you speak, even what you wear." I thought of the nights Raymond and I had shared pizza in our garage laboratory, wearing mismatched socks. Built from nothing, indeed. "Do not worry," I said. "I will dress appropriately." Douglas leaned forward. "It is more than appearance. Raymond values families that project respectability. This banquet is not just for him. It reflects on me, on my career trajectory. I need everyone to present the right image." Olivia's patience snapped. "Douglas, Dad has dignity. You do not need to lecture him." He softened his tone, though the condescension remained. "I only want to ensure the evening goes smoothly. Success requires careful staging." I turned to Olivia. "Sweetheart, would you mind showing Douglas the garden? I'll join you in a moment." She hesitated, reading my expression, then nodded. They stepped outside, leaving me by the fireplace. Through the glass door, I watched Douglas scan the neat rows of vegetables as if calculating their market value. A few minutes later, Olivia returned alone, worry etched on her face. "Dad, what are you planning?" "Planning?" I asked lightly. "You're letting him believe you're just some retired man with hobbies. Why?" "You should tell him the truth, that you helped build BioFuture, that you're still a major shareholder." I shook my head. If he knew, he would treat me differently. But that wouldn't reveal who he truly island. Secrets give people space to expose their nature. He has shown me enough already. Her voice trembled. "But you're setting him up. That's not fair." "Life isn't fair," I said gently. Better you see his true character now than 5 years into a marriage. Tears welled in her eyes. He can be kind. When we're alone, he's different. I placed a hand on hers. Kindness measured only when people are watching is not kindness at all. What matters is how he treats those he believes beneath him. She searched my face, then whispered, "So what happens at the banquet?" "You will watch," I replied, "and you will decide whether the man you love is the man you truly want." Her shoulders slumped, torn between loyalty and doubt. She whispered, "He'll hate you when he learns the truth." "Perhaps," I said. "The real question is whether he will hate himself." Outside, Douglas was pacing, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing with the confidence of a man already imagining himself a director. He spoke of markets, projections, and promotions, his words carrying through the glass. Olivia looked at me again. "Promise me you are not doing this just for revenge." "I promise," I said. "What I'm preparing is a lesson, justice, not spite." Her eyes shone with unshed tears, but she nodded slowly. "All right, Dad. I'll keep your secret. But please, be gentle." I smiled faintly. Gentle lessons rarely last. The banquet will show him the cost of arrogance, and it will show you who he truly island. Through the window, Douglas ended his call and waved impatiently for Olivia. She lingered by my side a moment longer, then rose. "Whatever you're planning," she said softly, "just remember I love him." "I know," I said, "and that is why I must be certain you see him clearly." The front door closed behind them, leaving the house quiet again. I returned to my study, opened my notebook, and added a single line, "Banquet stage set." The morning after Douglas's visit, I walked downtown beneath the chill wind sweeping off Lake Michigan. Evanston's sidewalks were littered with brittle leaves, the season's last confession before winter. Each step carried me closer to the preparations I had decided on, steps that required care, precision, and a touch of theater. My first destination was Armando's Tailoring, a narrow shop tucked between glass towers on Michigan Avenue. Inside, the air smelled faintly of wool and cedar. Armando himself emerged from behind a rack of suits, his silver hair combed back like a maestro preparing for a concert. "Mr. Garcia," he greeted, measuring tape draped around his neck. "I was told you might stop by. You need something special?" "A suit," I said. "Charcoal gray, conservative but commanding. It should speak without shouting." He nodded, already circling me, tape flicking like a conductor's baton. "You understand elegance, true quality whispers." Within minutes, he had pinned fabric against my shoulders, adjusting here, tugging there. I studied myself in the mirror, a man in his 60s, posture straightened, eyes sharper than his years. The suit would not announce wealth with glitter or flash. It would declare dignity, the kind that could not be bought off a rack. From Armando's, I walked 3 blocks to Cartwright and Associates, a jeweler with velvet-lined cases that glowed under spotlights. Brittany Davis, the associate on duty, greeted me with the practiced smile of someone who could read customers like novels. "I'm looking for cufflinks," I said. "Something classic?" she asked, drawing open a tray. My gaze settled on a pair of platinum links inlaid with small diamond chips, forming the stylized double helix of BioFuture's logo. 3 years earlier, Raymond had suggested these as commemorative gifts for senior staff. I had declined, preferring discretion. Today, they were perfect. "Custom ordered, yes?" I asked. She nodded, discreet but distinctive. Anyone familiar with BioFuture will recognize them instantly. "Excellent," I said, fastening one to my cuff for a moment. The metal caught the light like a secret waiting to be spoken. My final stop that afternoon was First National Tower. The banker assigned to me, Kelly Thomas, led me into her corner office overlooking the lake. She glanced at the paperwork I slid across the polished desk. $100,000? She asked. "That is a generous wedding gift." "Not a wedding gift," I corrected. "A gift of respect. For my daughter, not for appearances." She processed the certified check, sliding it into an envelope embossed with the bank's seal. When she handed it back, her expression carried the faint awe of someone glimpsing wealth wielded quietly. I thanked her and left, envelope secure in my jacket. That evening, I walked the shoreline path north of the city. The lake stretched like hammered steel under the fading light, waves whispering against stone. My breath steamed in the cold as I considered each piece of the plan: the tailored suit, the logo cufflinks, the certified check. None were meant as weapons. They were instruments, tuned to reveal truth. Douglas believed wealth was measured in flashy cars and expensive wine. He believed respect came from titles shouted across banquet halls. What he would see instead was the quiet kind of power, the kind that waits, patient, until arrogance collapses under its own weight. Back home, I opened my notebook. On one page, I drew 3 columns: appearance, evidence, lesson. Under appearance, I wrote, suit tailored by Armando, cufflinks platinum, check 100,000. Under evidence, I noted, incorporation papers, patents, Forbes article, partnership with Raymond. Under lesson, I scrawled, respect is not optional. The notebook closed with a decisive snap. 2 days later, Olivia stopped by again. She found me in the study, polishing the cufflinks with a soft cloth. "Dad," she said, eyes narrowing, "what are those?" "A reminder," I answered. She sank into the chair across from me. "You're going to expose him, aren't you?" I met her gaze. "I'm going to let him expose himself. The banquet is his stage. He will perform, as he always does. And when the curtain rises higher than he expects, everyone will see who he truly island." Her lips trembled. "He'll be humiliated." "Humiliation is not the goal," I said gently. "Education island. If he learns, he may yet become the man you deserve." She covered her face with her hands. "And if he doesn't, then you will know before vows are spoken." When she finally left, I remained at the desk, the cufflinks gleaming in the lamplight. Outside, winter clouds thickened over the lake, promising snow. Inside, I felt the calm certainty of a craftsman readying his tools. The lesson was prepared. The only task left was to wait for the stage. The night before the banquet, the Drake Hotel gleamed like a palace above Michigan Avenue. Crystal chandeliers blazed across the marble lobby, throwing shards of light onto polished floors. Guests in formal attire drifted through the corridors, murmuring with the anticipation of celebration. It was the rehearsal dinner for BioFuture's annual Thanksgiving banquet, and I knew Douglas Wilson would seize every moment to showcase his rising star. I arrived deliberately early, wearing a simple navy blazer rather than the tailored suit waiting at home. Tonight was not the night for revelation. Tonight was for watching. The chapel reserved for the dinner smelled of polished wood and candle wax. Stained glass filtered the city lights into soft colors that painted the pews. I took a seat near the aisle, unnoticed as staff set silver place settings on long mahogany tables. Soon the room filled with employees, spouses, and a few board members. Laughter rippled like champagne bubbles. Douglas entered with Olivia on his arm. His stride was brisk, his tie perfectly knotted, his confidence radiating like cologne. He shook hands, slapped backs, and introduced himself to anyone within reach. Each sentence he spoke was punctuated with statistics: 40% growth in 3 years, new accounts secured, projections doubled. When his eyes landed on me, a flicker of calculation crossed his face. Then the smile returned, smooth and bright. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called loudly enough for half the room to hear, "allow me to introduce my future father-in-law, Mr. Stephen Garcia. He is retired now, enjoying his hobbies. A simple man of modest tastes." The words were sugar-coated poison. A few guests nodded politely. Others turned back to their conversations. Olivia's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. I rose, straightening slowly. "Good evening," I said evenly. "It is an honor to be here." Douglas clapped me on the back with exaggerated warmth. Always good to see family supporting biofuture events, even if they are not in the corporate world. The remark earned a chuckle from one of his colleagues. My silence earned something else: attention. Throughout dinner, Douglas held court. He spoke of markets, mergers, and modernization, his voice rising with each boast. "The future belongs to those who disrupt," he declared, fork poised like a sword. "Outdated systems drag us down. Dead weight must be cut loose." I studied him as one studies a specimen under glass. His audience shifted between admiration and discomfort, but Douglas was too intoxicated with his own performance to notice. Olivia leaned toward me. Her whisper trembled. "Dad, please, don't let this escalate." I patted her hand. "I will not escalate," I murmured, "but I will not forget." When dessert was served, apple pie topped with melting vanilla ice cream, Douglas raised his glass. "To progress, to youth, ambition, and fresh ideas that keep biofuture alive." I lifted my own glass of water. "To experience," I said softly, "the kind that survives storms when ambition alone would drown." The toast froze for a heartbeat, then dissolved into awkward laughter. Douglas forced a grin, brushing off the tension. Later, as the evening wound down, I rose to leave. Douglas intercepted me near the door. His smile was polite, but his eyes glittered with challenge. "Mr. Garcia," he said, lowering his voice, "I hope I didn't offend you tonight. I only speak the truth. Success is measurable: numbers, promotions, influence. You of all people should understand that." I met his gaze calmly. "Success is also measured in what you cannot count." He tilted his head. "Such as?" "Respect," I replied. "Integrity. The character you reveal when you believe no one important is watching." His jaw tightened. "With respect, sir, I have never misjudged a man's capabilities. Not once. I read people for a living. It is my gift." I stepped closer, letting my words land with quiet weight. "Assumptions can be expensive, Douglas. Be certain you can afford yours." For the first time that evening, his smile faltered. He recovered quickly, clapping my shoulder. "I like your spirit. Tomorrow will be unforgettable." "Yes," I said, "it will." Olivia hurried over, her eyes darting between us. "Dad, are you leaving?" I kissed her cheek. "Yes, sweetheart. Get some rest. Tomorrow will show us everything we need to know." I walked out of the chapel into the cool Chicago night. Behind me, music swelled again, voices rising in celebration. Ahead of me stretched the dark street, the city lights gleaming like 1,000 eyes. The rehearsal dinner had confirmed what I already knew. Douglas Wilson was blind to anything outside his own reflection. Tomorrow, at the banquet, the mirror would crack. Thanksgiving Day dawned clear and cold, the Chicago skyline etched against a pale sky. By late afternoon, the Lakeshore Country Club glowed with golden light, its tall windows reflecting the lake like polished brass. Cars lined the circular drive as guests in dark suits and shimmering dresses stepped out beneath the fluttering flags. Inside, the banquet hall smelled of roasted turkey and mulled cider. Crystal chandeliers cast soft fire over tables dressed in white linen. At the far end, a string quartet played gentle hymns of the season. The room was meant for gratitude, but tonight it was also a stage. I entered quietly, wearing the charcoal gray suit Armando had tailored. The fabric whispered authority without flash. On my cuffs gleamed platinum links inlaid with the BioFuture double helix. In my inner pocket rested the certified check for $100,000. Every piece was in place. Olivia spotted me near the entrance. She looked radiant in a dark green dress, though her eyes betrayed nerves. At her side, Douglas was already speaking with colleagues, his gestures broad, his laughter rehearsed. "Dad," Olivia whispered as she embraced me, "you look wonderful. Please, be careful." I kissed her cheek. "Tonight is not about me. It is about truth." Before long, Douglas was steering us across the room. His hand on my shoulder was firm, possessive. He guided me toward a distinguished figure in a navy suit, standing near the windows with quiet authority. "Mr. Johnson," Douglas announced loudly, ensuring nearby colleagues turned their heads. "May I introduce my fiancée Olivia and her father, Mr. Stephen Garcia. He is retired now, enjoying hobbies and a simple life in Evanston." The words landed like a verdict. A few guests smiled indulgently. I saw Olivia's fingers clutch her clutch purse tightly. Raymond Johnson turned toward me. For an instant, his expression was polite, disinterest. Then his gaze dropped to my cufflinks. His eyes widened. The polite mask shattered. "Stephen?" he said, his voice carrying over the murmurs of the crowd. "Stephen Garcia?" Douglas blinked, startled. "You know him?" "Know him?" Raymond stepped forward, gripping my hand with both of his. "This man is my partner. We founded BioFuture together. Every success we have, every patent, every innovation has his fingerprints on it." Gasps rippled through the room, conversations stilled, forks paused halfway to mouths. Douglas's face drained of color. That can't be right. He's just Olivia's father." Raymond's tone sharpened. "He is not just anything. Without Stephen, there would be no BioFuture." Around us, employees and board members leaned closer, eyes bright with fascination. The humiliation was public and undeniable. Douglas stammered, "Sir, I didn't know. He never told me." Raymond's expression hardened. "You didn't ask. Instead, you chose to belittle him in front of your colleagues, in front of me." I raised a hand gently. "Raymond." The room quieted further. I let my gaze rest on Douglas, his shoulders hunched as though waiting for the blow. "Douglas," I said evenly, "you have spoken much about disruption, about cutting away dead weight, about judging worth by appearances. Tonight, your words weigh more than you realize." His mouth opened, then closed. Olivia touched his arm, her face pale with distress. "Assumptions can be expensive," I continued. "You assumed my life ended with retirement. You assumed hobbies defined me. You assumed experience without youth is useless. Tonight you learn that assumptions can also humiliate." The silence in the hall was broken only by the faint strains of the quartet, now awkwardly subdued. Raymond folded his arms. "Douglas, we will speak at length after this evening. For now, you would do well to apologize." Douglas's lips trembled. He turned toward me, eyes desperate. "Mr. Garcia Stephen, I am sorry. I misjudged you. I spoke without respect." The apology was halting, but the fear in his voice was genuine. The audience, however, was not easily satisfied. Board members whispered. Colleagues avoided his gaze. The rising star of BioFuture now flickered like a candle in the wind. I allowed the silence to stretch, then nodded slowly. "Your apology is noted. But forgiveness is not free. Tomorrow, or next week, you will face consequences for how you treat those you underestimate. Tonight is only the beginning." Douglas swallowed hard. "I understand." Raymond gestured to the crowd, regaining control. "Let us continue with dinner. Thanksgiving is for gratitude, and tonight I am grateful for the reminder that character matters more than titles." Applause rose, tentative at first, then stronger. The quartet picked up a brighter tune. Conversation resumed, though eyes still darted toward Douglas, now sweating under the lights. I returned to my seat, Olivia beside me. She whispered, "Dad, that was brutal." I patted her hand gently. "Truth off an island." The meal continued with turkey and wine, but the real feast had already been served. Douglas Wilson had wanted a stage, and tonight the curtain had risen. The lesson had begun. The banquet carried on, but the air had changed. Laughter rang thinner, conversations clipped shorter. Though the string quartet played on, every note seemed like background to the humiliation still echoing through the hall. Douglas sat stiffly beside Olivia, his posture betraying a man struggling to hold fragments of pride. He reached for his wine glass with fingers that trembled slightly. The colleagues who had once gathered eagerly around him now drifted toward safer conversations, unwilling to stand too close to a falling star. Raymond Johnson, ever the statesman, leaned toward me. "Stephen, I cannot believe he spoke to you like that. If he had shown such arrogance in the office, I would have cut him loose months ago." I raised a hand calmly. Let him speak for himself. All eyes shifted back to Douglas. He cleared his throat, voice faltering. "Mr. Garcia, Mr. Johnson, I owe you both an apology. I didn't realize." Raymond cut him off sharply. "Respect should not require realization. It is given freely, regardless of someone's résumé or bank account. You failed that test." A murmur of agreement rippled among the board members seated nearby. Douglas's face paled further. "I can explain. I was only trying to help, to offer guidance. I misjudged." I leaned forward. "Guidance? You offered me entry-level opportunities. You told me to occupy myself with hobbies. You called experienced men dead weight. Tell me, Douglas, was that guidance, or was it contempt disguised as advice?" The question hung like a blade in the silence. Olivia reached for Douglas's arm. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "Please, stop, just stop." But Douglas pressed on, desperation cracking his voice. "I never meant harm. I wanted to impress my colleagues. I wanted them to see me as driven, ambitious." Raymond's expression darkened. "Ambition, without humility, is poison. You humiliated yourself tonight." Guests leaned in, savoring the spectacle even as they feigned sympathy. Champagne glasses hovered, forks paused mid-air. A story was unfolding that would be told at corporate gatherings for years. Douglas rose suddenly, his chair scraping the floor. "Mr. Johnson, please do not let this ruin my career. I've worked hard. My numbers speak for themselves. I can fix this." Raymond's voice was ice. "Your numbers may speak, but tonight your character shouted louder. Monday morning, Human Resources will review your position." A collective gasp fluttered across the hall. Olivia buried her face in her hands. Douglas turned desperately toward me. His voice cracked. "Mr. Garcia, Stephen, please, help me. You have influence. Speak for me." I studied him carefully, weighing not just his words but the raw panic in his eyes. For months he had spoken with certainty, delivering insults as if they were wisdom. Now his tongue stumbled like a child begging for mercy. "Douglas," I said softly, "what have you learned tonight?" He swallowed hard. "That assumptions are dangerous. That respect matters more than appearances. That I was wrong." The words trembled, but they carried truth. He had been broken open in front of everyone he admired. I rose slowly, my suit whispering as I adjusted the lapel. "Raymond," I said, turning to my old friend, "perhaps mercy teaches as much as punishment. If Douglas is willing to learn, perhaps probation would serve better than dismissal." The room shifted again. Some guests nodded in approval, others frowned, wishing for a harsher end. Raymond studied me for a long moment. "You would intercede for him?" he asked. "I would," I said, "not because he deserves it, but because Olivia deserves clarity. Let him prove whether he can change." Olivia looked up, hope flickering through her tears. Raymond exhaled slowly. "Very well. Douglas, you will remain employed, but under strict probation for 6 months. One misstep, and you are gone. Do you understand?" "Yes," Douglas said quickly, his voice hoarse. "I understand completely. Thank you." He turned to me again, grasping my hand with both of his. "Thank you, Mr. Garcia. I swear, I will never forget this lesson." I nodded, though my eyes remained cool. "See that you don't. Respect is not optional." The tension in the room eased, though whispers continued. The quartet struck a brighter tune, eager to fill the silence with melody. Glasses clinked as guests toasted half-heartedly, though everyone knew the real toast of the evening had already been made: the collapse of arrogance into humility. As I returned to my seat, Olivia slipped her arm through mine. She whispered, "You saved him." I shook my head. "No, sweetheart. He will have to save himself. I only gave him the chance." Her grip tightened, gratitude mingling with fear. Around us, the banquet carried on, but the lesson lingered in every corner. Douglas Wilson had come to the Thanksgiving banquet expecting applause. What he received instead was a mirror, and in that reflection, the man he saw was smaller than he had ever imagined. The following morning, the city woke under a pale Sunday frost, clung to the windows of my Evanston home, catching light like scattered diamonds. I sat at my desk, the leather folder of BioFuture's history open before me. The banquet was over, yet its echoes remained in every message that blinked on my phone, board members praising restraint, colleagues stunned by revelation, whispers from the corporate world already spreading across Chicago. On the desk beside the folder rested the certified check for $100,000. I had not presented it at the banquet. The moment had not been right. But today, as the air cleared, I knew it was time. Olivia arrived just after noon, her eyes weary, but her voice steady. "Dad, Douglas hasn't stopped talking since last night. He's shaken, but different. He keeps saying he wants to earn respect, not demand it." I gestured for her to sit. "We will see. Words are easy the morning after humiliation. Action is the only proof that lasts." She nodded, twisting her engagement ring. "You were harsh, but fair. I think he understands now." I slid the envelope across the desk. "This is for you. A wedding gift." She blinked at the embossed seal. "What is it?" $100,000. Enough to begin your married life without worry. Enough to remind you that modest appearances do not define truth." Her hand flew to her mouth. "Dad, I can't accept this." "You can," I said firmly, "because it is not for Douglas. It is for you. My gratitude for being my daughter, for standing by me even when you did not understand my silence." Tears shimmered in her eyes as she took the envelope. She whispered, "Thank you." The doorbell rang then. Olivia glanced nervously toward it. "That will be him." Douglas entered, his confidence stripped away, replaced by humility that seemed almost foreign on his face. He carried no grand gestures, no booming laugh. Instead, he stepped carefully into the study, his eyes landing on the photographs of the garage days, the framed patents, the article in Forbes. "Mr. Garcia," he began quietly, "I came to say what I couldn't last night. I was wrong, completely. I judged you by appearance, by what I thought I saw, and I treated you with disrespect." I folded my hands on the desk. "And what did you learn?" He drew a breath. "That respect is not a strategy, it's a requirement. That ambition without humility is dangerous. That experience is not dead weight, it's the anchor that keeps a company from drifting." Olivia watched silently, hope warring with doubt in her eyes. I let the silence stretch until Douglas shifted uncomfortably. Then I rose and extended my hand. "You have 6 months to prove those words. Not to me, but to yourself, to Olivia, and to the people who work under you. If you squander this chance, no one will save you again." His handshake trembled, but it was steady enough. "I understand. I won't fail." Olivia released a breath she had been holding. She touched Douglas's arm gently, then turned to me. "Dad, thank you for giving him a chance." I smiled faintly. This was never about revenge. It was about wisdom. Sometimes the harshest justice is not dismissal. It is the chance to live with the memory of failure and the responsibility to grow from it. Later, as they left together, I returned to the window. The lake shimmered under the winter light, steady and endless. I thought of Raymond and our years of struggle, of the risks we had taken when no one believed in us. We had built something that outlasted doubt. Now, perhaps, Douglas would learn the same lesson if he had the strength. That evening, Raymond called. His voice carried both amusement and admiration. "Stephen, the story is already circling the company. Half the staff think you orchestrated the banquet like a play. Perhaps I did, I said. He laughed. You could have destroyed the boy, and no one would have blamed you. Instead, you gave him probation. Why? Because mercy teaches what humiliation alone cannot, I replied. He may stumble, but if he learns, Olivia gains a husband worth keeping. If he doesn't, she will know soon enough. Raymond's voice softened. You always were the quiet revolutionary, even now. After the call ended, I sat alone in the study. The cufflinks gleamed in the lamplight, platinum and diamond, spelling out the history of a company born in sacrifice. The suit hung neatly in the wardrobe, its work complete. I closed the leather folder and placed it back on the shelf. Thanksgiving had always been about gratitude. This year, I was grateful for patience, for the wisdom to wait, and for the chance to remind one arrogant young man that respect is not optional. Justice had been served not with the blade of vengeance, but with the steady hand of wisdom. And sometimes, that was the sweeter victory.